Welcome back to All This Math, everybody. And if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go hit the button right below. Subscribe to the channel. Also turn on the post notifications. And if you feel like you learned something from this video, by the end of this video, go ahead and hit the like button. All right? Actually, you can hit the like button right now because you're definitely going to learn something. But anyway, moving right along. Take a look at this word problem I got behind. Well, actually, it's not really a word problem. I misspoke. It's not really a word problem, right? We're finding out some information. We're going to find out the equation of a particular line, right? You could classify it as a word problem. It does have a lot of words in it, but it's not your typical or traditional word problem where you have to really translate a scenario, like a practical everyday life or real life scenario, into an equation and then solve the equation in order to answer the original question. So it's not that kind of word problem. What we're doing here is we're going to figure out what the equation of a line is given certain information. All right. So let's read it first. That's always the first step. Let's read what we're dealing with. Let's read it. This problem says to find the equation of the line with the same slope as this equation, 3x minus 5y equals 7, and the same y-intercept as 2y minus 9x equals 8. So, we know what the slope is, right? The slope is the rate of change of the line, right? Rise over run, y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. Typically, the slope really determines, when you graph a straight line, how flat it's going to be or how slanted it's going to be, right? That's what the slope does, right? How flat or how slanted. That's what the slope does. Also, the y-intercept, we need to be familiar with that. The y-intercept is just the exact point where the line crosses the y-axis. Now, any particular line has an infinite number of y values, right? The y-intercept is that special y value. That special y value, because if a line has a y-intercept, because every line doesn't have a y-intercept, because every line doesn't cross through the y-axis, right? It could be a vertical line. It won't hit the y-axis. That can happen, right? But this is where the line is going to cross the y-axis, and that can only happen at one place. So therefore, the y-intercept is very exclusive. It's a very important piece of information. Now, if I want to find the equation of a line that's got the same slope as this line, I first need to know what the slope of this line is. Now, I'm going to take a moment and look at this equation. This says 3x minus 5y equals 7. Now, I also know that there are a couple different ways that we write equations of lines. One way, which is the most popular, is the slope-intercept form. That's where it's set up following y equals mx plus b. This does not follow y equals mx plus b. This is what we call standard form. In standard form, that's based on ax plus by equals c. You got your x term, you got a y term, you got an equal sign, and you got a constant, right? So if it was in slope-intercept form, we'd be able to just look right at it and say, okay, boom, what's the coefficient of the x term? That's my slope. Straight like that, right? But this is not slope-intercept form. This is standard form. All right, so in standard form, we got a couple choices. You could solve for y and convert this into slope-intercept form if you wanted to. You could do that. There's nothing wrong with that. And then you'd be able to say, okay, boom, what's the coefficient of x? That's my slope. All right, or there's a formula I'm going to put you on to. When you're dealing with standard form linear equations, you can use this formula for slope. M equals negative a over b. Lowercase m stands for slope. A is the coefficient of the x term. B is the coefficient of the y term. And we can just plug those numbers in and then simplify the fraction. So my a term is going to be 3. So that's going to be negative 3. My b term is negative 5. So that's that right there. And now these are both negative, so I can simplify those. I can't really put it in lower terms than 3 and 5 because the greatest common factor of 3 and 5 is just 1, right? But I can get rid of these negative signs because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So that means that the slope of this line is 3/5. All right. Now that's one piece of information that I need in order to write the equation of the line I'm looking for. I also need to know the y-intercept of this. Now, this is in standard form, even though the x term is after the y term, it still could be considered standard form, right? Now, how do you find the y-intercept? I'm going to do y in int and put a colon. When you're given any equation, really, You find the y-intercept by substituting a 0 for x and then solving for y. So basically, I find the x, I make x 0. I make x 0, and then I solve for y. So I got 2y. Remember, I'm not making y 0 because I'm going to solve for y. I don't know what y is, but I'm about to find out. So I'm not going to purposely make y into a 0 or substitute 0 for y. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to solve for y. But I am going to purposely substitute 0 for x. So I got 2y minus 9 times 0 equals 8. Right? 9 times 0 is nothing. That's just 0. That's going to cancel out. So that's leaving us with 2y equals 8. I solve for y by getting rid of this 2. 2 times y, that's multiplication. The opposite of multiplying is dividing. That's how we get rid of stuff when we're solving equations. We do the opposite operation. Divide that by 2. Divide this by 2. That's going to be y, because 2 divided by 2 is 1. So that's 1y, which is just y. And then 8 divided by 2. Don't make the careless mistake. Don't write 6, because we're not doing 8 minus 2. We're doing 8 divided by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So this is the y-intercept. This is the y-intercept. This is a special y value. So now, in order to write my equation that I'm looking for, I got my slope and I got my y-intercept. So I could just do this. Y equals mx plus b. Right? Now, when I write the equation in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, I only need a numerical value for m and for b, not for y and x. Right? I'm going to keep my variable y, I'm going to keep my variable x in my equation. So I can just throw them numbers in there. Y equals 3/5 x, 3/5, like the 3/5 compromise from the U.S. Constitution, which we should all know about, you know. Article 1, paragraph 2, section 1, U.S. Constitution. Everybody should familiarize themselves with that, 3/5 compromise, so we can understand what type of country we really live in, right? Anyway, y equals 3/5 x plus the 4 is my y-intercept. Boom. Now, I could stop right there, but I'm not going to stop right there. You know why I'm not going to stop right there? It's because I tend to like, and this is how I was taught, I'm going to give you the answer in the format that you gave me the information in the first place. What I mean by that is this. These two equations that I was given in the first place to utilize in order to find the information that I needed, those equations were in standard form. So it don't really seem right to give you the answer in slope-intercept form if these equations were in standard form. So let's do this. Let's convert this to standard form. Now, standard form means that your x and your y terms are all on the left side of the equal sign, and we don't have any fraction coefficients. We don't have any fraction coefficients. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move this 3/5 x to the other side of the equal sign, right? So it's a positive 3/5 x. So in order for me to move it to the other side, I basically got to subtract 3/5 x on the right, subtract 3/5 x on the left. So I got negative 3/5 x, and then I got negative 3/5 x. Boom. Those cancel out. So now I'm looking at negative 3/5 x plus y, because y was already over here, is equal to 4. And I put the x term first because we follow in alphabetical order. This joint is a little weird, right? Usually the x term is going to be first, but it don't really matter. So anyway, another thing, these fractions, they got to go. So in order to get rid of this fraction, I can multiply the whole equation by 5. Now here's another thing too. And I don't know, this might be a point of contention. Certain textbooks show it this way, certain textbooks don't. Some textbooks don't want the lead coefficient to be negative. So to be on the safe side, I just make my lead coefficient positive. So I would multiply this by 5 to get rid of the fraction. Because when I multiply this by 5, this is what's going to happen. Watch this. 5 times 3 is 15. 15 divided by 5 is 3. Fraction's gone. Just like that. The fraction is gone. Right? But if I multiply by a positive 5, that's still going to be a negative coefficient. Right? It's still going to be negative. So like I said, some textbooks, some teachers, some professors, whoever, they advocate for the lead coefficient in standard form to be positive. So cool, let's do that. I mean, it doesn't make the answer wrong technically if you leave it as a negative, and it's not going to be wrong if you make it positive. So I'm going to just multiply the whole equation by -5. So -5 times -3/5 is going to be positive 3x. Let me do it over here. Positive 3x, because, let me break it down for you. -5 times -3 is positive 15. 15 over 5. 15 over 5 is positive 3. That's a small division problem. 15 divided by 5 is 3. But remember, even though this is the only fraction we got to get rid of, you still need to multiply every term in the problem by that -5. Everything needs to be multiplied by -5. So I got to do -5 times y. So that's minus 5y. And I got to do -5 times 4. So that's -20. This is my final answer. This is the equation of a line that has the same slope as this line and has the same y-intercept as that line. Right there. That's my answer right there. I like this problem. I like problems like this. You know why? Because problems like this, they really test your skills, right? They test your battery of knowledge to see if you understand concepts like, what is a slope? What is a y-intercept? How do I solve equations, basically, you know? And also, it's not like real straightforward. It's like you got to sit back and like pause and like really think a little bit like, oh, okay, how am I do this? And you don't see these types of problems every single day, right? This kind of reminds me of something you might see on a SAT or on an ACT, right? So if you're out there, you should familiarize yourself with these types of problems. Challenge yourself to do these types of problems. You know what I'm saying? All right. And again, if you haven't already, please go ahead, hit the button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and share these videos. Let somebody know about this channel that never heard of it before. You know, I'd appreciate it. If you have specific requests for math problems you'd like to see videos for, hit us up on the Instagram at All This Math. Also, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the Instagram channel at All This Math. Let people know what we're doing out here. Spread the word. Tell everybody about it. And as always, do remember, there's all this math all around you. Peace.